I'm currently working in a small-town factory. I started working there when I was 15, and it's been 10 years now. After graduating from middle school, my family was poor, so I couldn't continue to high school like my classmates. To be honest, of course, I felt some disappointment. I enjoyed my school life up to middle school, and I was certainly anxious about not being able to have the same life as everyone else. But what kept me going, even though I started working right after middle school, were my frail but kind mother and my adoring younger brother and sister. Then there were the bright and funny older guys at the factory. Thanks to the people I've been blessed with, I've been able to overcome the challenges in my life. That's what I believe. But maybe because of the way I've lived, I've developed an attitude of letting go of those who leave. When my father left during my elementary school years, and when my friends excluded me because I couldn't keep up with their high school discussions, there's no point in chasing after them. Instead, I decided to cherish the people who are around me. That's how I came to think. But there was just one person who changed my way of thinking. She's Emily, my girlfriend, whom I've been dating for 3 years. Emily's family is wealthy, unlike mine. She went to college and now works as an office lady in a major company in the city. In other words, we're a couple with a financial gap. Despite that, Emily treats me as an equal, and the time I spend with her is genuinely joyful. I can't imagine a life without Emily. That's why I've come to want to marry Emily and start a family. I may not be able to offer her luxuries, but I've decided to always make her laugh regardless. And so, I began preparing for the proposal. There seemed to be various ways to propose, like dinner at a hotel, a big bouquet, or a surprise at a theme park, as I found out on the internet. Since a proposal is a once-in-a-lifetime event, I wanted to make it something memorable and joyful for Emily. What I thought of was proposing in a hotel room. Emily and I met through our shared hobby of photography. We both love cameras. So we often traveled to see landscapes we wanted to capture, staying at local hotels. Usually, we chose cheaper hotels since photography was our priority. But this time, I secretly reserved a luxury hotel to surprise her. The night view from the terrace was also highly recommended, so I thought it would be enjoyable for our photography hobby. Thinking this, I managed to reserve a luxury hotel by spending months saving up. And then there's the engagement ring that I couldn't forget. I didn't want to skimp on this just because I'm poor. I want to walk for life with her. To convey that feeling, I couldn't compromise on this. It was my first time proposing, so I was nervous about everything. But somehow, I managed to prepare everything by the day of the proposal. And then, the day of the proposal, we went to take photo of the sea, a place we had talked about visiting. Following that, we went to the luxury hotel I had reserved, and Emily was, as expected, surprised. We're always joking around, so at first, she thought it was a joke. But when I told her it was real, she was really surprised. The first surprise was a success. Feeling relieved inside, I asked Emily to wait on the lobby sofa while I went to the front desk. I thought the staff at the front desk were very elegant, fitting for a luxury hotel. It was my first time staying in such a hotel, so I was a bit nervous when I approached the staff. "I have a reservation for one night, under the name Anderson," I said. As I said this and looked at the staff's face, it felt like I had seen him somewhere before. Thinking it was just my imagination, I didn't pay much attention and waited for the staff to speak. "Could I also have your first name, please?" My name is Michael Anderson." It was just a simple exchange, but I felt a slight cloud over my heart. For some reason, I couldn't explain this unpleasant feeling. I've experienced it somewhere before. Why am I recalling such things at this moment? Just when I was trying to suppress the resurgence of unpleasant memories from the past. There's no reservation under that name. I was startled by the soft voice. Right, this hotel staff, isn't he David, my middle school classmate? When I looked up at his face, I saw the same disdainful expression he often had back then. What do you mean? I'm sure I made the reservation over the phone. I tried hard to keep my voice steady as I said that. I showed the confirmation email for the reservation. But he replied, "Reservation? We don't have any record of it here. Maybe it was canceled." I had no memory of canceling it, and I hadn't received any notification to that effect. I was sure I had been sabotaged. I never thought that David would be working in this hotel. David and I went to the same middle school and were in the same soccer team. I was poor and not smart, but I was good and passionate about sports. I think I really tried my best back then, even getting to play in games with the older grades. But David probably didn't like that. He started by hiding my stuff and spread rumors about me to other team members, ostracizing me. I had other friends outside of the team, and as long as I could play soccer, I was okay. I tried not to let it bother me, but the truth is, it was really tough. Being ridiculed as poor every day and having my place taken away from me. Even though it's been over 10 years and the memories have faded, to meet him here, on such an important day. But my situation is none of David's concern. He would probably just find it amusing to mess with me. So I thought it best not to show my emotions and just ignore him. Maybe I made a mistake and canceled it. Can I please reserve a room now? Whatever you have available. I said this, trying to keep calm. But he bluntly said, "Unfortunately, we're fully booked." I see. I thought it was over. He definitely wasn't going to let me stay at this hotel. Emily was waiting, and it might be quicker to look for another hotel than to cause a scene here. I was really disappointed because it was such a beautiful hotel with a view she would have loved. Just as I was about to give up and turn away from the front desk, David said this. "A poor guy like you, staying here? No way, know your place." He said it in a very low voice, so no one else could hear, but it reached my ears clearly. "David," I was about to lose my patience, but then he said, "Go ahead, embarrass yourself and get dumped by your girl." That brought me back to my senses. Emily is waiting, so I need to get back to her. Forget about David. When I returned to the sofa, Emily noticed and said, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I might have taken longer than usual, and perhaps my expression was dark. But I couldn't let her worry in a place like this. I forced a smile and said, "Sorry, they told me my reservation wasn't made. We'll find another place to stay. I'm really sorry." I apologized while trying to act cheerful and not worry her. "Really? That's okay. I'll help look for a place too." Emily was definitely surprised, but in times like these, she never gets angry or loses her composure. She's the type of woman who enjoys any situation. But still, I was causing her trouble. Eager to find a place to stay as soon as possible, I called various nearby accommodations. But, since it was a long holiday weekend, everywhere was fully booked. The only place with an available reservation was a small, privately run inn Emily found, quite a bit further up in the mountains. Although my plan for a luxury hotel stay had fallen through, we couldn't just sleep outside. Emily and I decided to head to that inn. When we arrived at the inn, it was older than I expected. But once inside, it was clean and seemed like a nice place. "We've been expecting you," an elderly lady greeted us, and I felt a warm and cozy feeling. The contrast with the unpleasant experience at the hotel with David might have contributed to the relief I felt. "I'm Michael, the one who called earlier. I'm sorry for the sudden request." She replied, No, our guests are always welcome," and she immediately showed us to our room. The room turned out to be a spacious special room, quite wonderful. "Is it okay for us to have such a large room, especially since we came so suddenly?" The elderly lady smiled and said, "Yes, of course." It was different from a luxury hotel, but a charming inn in the mountains. The view from there was really beautiful. It's so healing to be surrounded by nature like this, especially after being in the hustle and bustle of the city all the time. Emily seemed to feel the same way. Just when I thought everything turned out fine and we were lucky to find such a nice inn, I heard some commotion outside our room and went to check. There was a water leak in the ceiling of the room next door, and the innkeeper and other ladies were bustling about, trying to fix it. "Can I help with anything?" The staff seemed to be all women, so with my height, I'd probably be more effective in handling the ceiling repairs. Plus, I'm used to this kind of work for my job. "But you're our guest. We can have you doing this." They hesitated, but I insisted. I want to make up for the sudden trouble, and took a bucket from them. "Then we'll gladly accept your help." The building was old but well maintained, so these things happen. While I was helping, Emily was saying to the elderly lady, "Don't overdo it, sit down and rest." Her friendly and caring nature towards someone she just met was so like her. It made me smile. After the emergency repairs, we had dinner in our room. The meal, full of mountain delicacies, was truly delicious. If we had stayed as planned in the hotel, we would have been in a fancy restaurant by now, but by then, I had a feeling. Maybe this homely atmosphere suited Emily and me better. While I do aspire to luxury, this warm and cozy feeling is what makes us comfortable, and it's the kind of home life I want to build. Thinking this, I started to feel that proposing in this inn might be the best thing. During the meal, the elderly lady kept bringing dish after dish. Way too much for 2 people to finish. "We can't eat anymore," Emily said, and the lady laughed, apologizing. "Oh dear, I'm sorry. If you can't finish, I'll prepare some containers so you can take it home." Her words added even more warmth to the atmosphere. After dinner, as I gazed out of the window at the scenery from our room, I finally managed to say these words. "I love the warm atmosphere when I'm with you, Emily. I want to keep walking this path together, always. Will you marry me?" It was a true feeling that I could express because it wasn't in a luxury hotel, but in this place. If I had proposed in the hotel, I might have been too nervous to truly imprint this important moment in my heart. "I feel the same way. I want to be with you forever," Emily said with a smile, accepting the ring. "It's kind of embarrassing, huh?" Just as we were talking, the sliding door opened, and we were startled. When we looked over, "Congratulations on your engagement," the female staff said, and the elderly lady was standing formally, clapping for us. "Grandma, you were listening," Emily exclaimed in surprise, and then something unbelievable happened. I was a bit curious. "Michael, please take care of my granddaughter." Her eyes were filled with tears. "Wait, granddaughter, what?" I couldn't comprehend the situation and had to ask Emily to explain. Turns out, this inn was Emily's mother's family home, and the elderly lady was indeed Emily's grandmother. "Sorry I didn't tell you. I just never found the right moment. I used to come here to play when I was little. It's a place full of memories for me. That's why I was so happy when you liked it." It was completely unexpected and quite a twist of events, but the next day, another surprising development awaited us. As we were about to check out of the inn and headed to the reception, incredibly, there was David, the very person who had refused us a room the day before. Next to him was an unfamiliar, portly man. When David noticed us, he approached, his demeanor entirely different from his condescending attitude the day before, and apologized. Sorry about yesterday." "Huh?" Then the man who followed David hit him on the head. "Sorry, that's not how you apologize to a guest. We are truly sorry is what you should say. Truly, I'm very sorry." As I stood there dumbfounded, the man spoke in a gentle, calm voice that didn't match his earlier anger. "Michael, I'm terribly sorry for the inexcusable behavior of our employee. I am Kevin, the manager, to apologize. We have arranged a complimentary 2-night stay in our suite room. Please call me directly using this business card whenever you'd like to stay. Really? Is that okay? Of course, please do come with your wife. Emily and I looked at each other, bewildered, but decided to ask the question on our minds. May I ask something? Yes, of course. How did you know we were here, and why did you call her my wife? I am sorry, but I am the one called them. A voice came from behind, and there stood the grandmother. I was worried when Emily suddenly wanted to stay over. When I heard you were turned away from the hotel, I couldn't believe it. That hotel is run by a friend of mine, so I asked her to check. It's unacceptable to refuse important guests without a serious reason. David and manager Kevin received a long lecture from the grandmother. Grandma is strict when it comes to work, Emily whispered to me with a chuckle. Afterward, it seems David was fired from the hotel. Though I was initially disappointed about not staying in the luxury hotel, it turned into an unexpected twist of fate. On the day we registered our marriage, we were able to stay at the luxury hotel we had always admired. Incredibly, they not only provided the stay but also prepared a commemorative cake and a surprise bouquet, offering us the best hospitality. Since then, after some discussions, we are now working at that inn. The grandmother is really strict, and I'm still getting used to things, often getting scolded. Occasionally, my younger brother and sister bring my mother to stay, and Mr. Brown, the owner of the factory I used to work at, uses it for company trips, so I still keep in touch with the old guys from there. Our inn, nestled in the mountains and not new, offers a place for guests to relax and rejuvenate, and that's what we aim to provide, the best hospitality. And together with Emily, I want to cherish and preserve this inn of memories. I'm Alex, an office worker. At 23 years old, I'm now in my 5th year of service, having started working immediately after graduating from high school. Initially, being the youngest and without any part-time job experience, I received kind support from my superiors. Despite my limitations, I worked hard and gradually became accustomed to this job. In the 5th spring of my tenure, I was assigned to be the chief of a project for the first time, marking the beginning of a tumultuous period. My name is Emma. Nice to meet you. On the first day of the new fiscal year, that's how the new employee, a fresh college graduate in her first year, greeted everyone. With her striking looks and a confident smile. Her outgoing personality meant she showed no signs of nervousness from day one. And that's to be expected, since she is the only daughter of the company president. Displaying an attitude unbecoming of a new employee, she flaunted her status as the president's daughter. While some male employees didn't seem to mind as she got good looks, everyone was taken aback by her overly familiar demeanor. Everyone, except for me. Of course, anyone would be surprised to see a new employee, let alone the president's daughter, acting so boldly upon first meeting. But I wasn't surprised because I already knew her well. Wow, Alex, you're still here, you're surprisingly persistent. Her sarcastic tone was something I had heard often until 5 years ago, bringing back unpleasant memories in a flash. Emma, yes, I'm still here. You were so dull and clumsy, but now you're dyeing your hair and getting all cocky. A corporate debut, too late, it's hilarious. Yes, she was my high school classmate. Hair dyeing was prohibited in high school. I'm not trying to make a debut or anything. As I replied modestly, she said, well, talking back now, how cheeky. Cheeky, we're the same age, despite being technically my junior at the workplace. But to Emma, such details didn't matter. Whether a new employee or not, being the president's daughter seemed to grant her a pass for her behavior. Even though she was always haughty, arguing with her was futile. Any response would just be met with a condescending comeback. I had experienced this countless times during high school. I first met Emma in the spring of our sophomore year. We became classmates from that year. Emma was already standing out from the start of the new term, at the apex of the girls' groups. As for me, I have a few friends but not many, and I'm not particularly noticeable. I'd say I'm about average or slightly below that within the school. So, I never thought of interacting with Emma in her group, but from the very first meeting, she started with her sarcasm. "Hey, is that fun?" At the time, I was into card games and would play with friends during breaks. After eavesdropping, Emma deliberately asked that. "Well, it's fun," I said. To which she laughed loudly and commented, "Seriously, nerds are like kids, doing the same things as elementary schoolers." Despite never having spoken to me before, she deliberately approached me just to say something like that. I was completely baffled by her behavior and felt something akin to astonishment. As for me, I think wearing makeup and accessories against school rules and getting scolded by teachers every day is way more childish. Back then, I didn't think before speaking and blurted out what was on my mind. This infuriated Emma. That must have really bothered her, as she started picking on me daily with sarcastic remarks. I've gotten myself into trouble. I shouldn't have said that. Regretting it in my mind was too late. Hoping she would tire of me, I stopped responding altogether, which probably made her think she had won. We ended up in the same class for all 3 years of high school, and I had to endure her sarcastic remarks every day. It wasn't outright bullying, but being subjected to daily sarcasm was quite mentally taxing. The worst part was her comments about where I was going to work. "Hey, I heard you got a job," though I hadn't told anyone but my close friends. Somehow Emma knew about it. Wondering how she found out, I simply replied, "Well, yeah." Pitiful that you can't even go to college. Are you poor or something? Choosing the wrong family to be born into really makes life hard, doesn't it? "I'm so glad I'm me," she taunted. Why do I have to listen to Emma's bragging just because we're talking about my job? While I waited for her to leave, Emma dropped a bombshell. "I heard from a teacher that you're going to work at my dad's company." That was a real shock. I knew her father was a company president and that their last name was Johnson, which I had found out while preparing for my interview. But it never crossed my mind that they were related, considering how common the surname is. To think that the company I was so excited to join belonged to the father of the classmate I disliked. I couldn't hide my shock. "Funny, you look so upset." "Don't worry, I plan to join my dad's company after graduating college, but you probably won't last 5 years there, so we won't have to work together." She laughed out loud at that. She looked down on me and kept using it as a topic of ridicule until graduation. "Going to work at my dad's company. I can get in without doing anything. It's pathetic that you have to try so hard," she mocked. "His company is so stylish, but you'll stick out like a sore thumb with your country bumpkin vibe," she teased. I endured her sarcasm until graduation, finally feeling liberated from Emma when I started working. But the 5 years passed quickly. I knew she would join the company someday. Even though I knew we would meet again, I stayed at this company because I didn't want to admit defeat. Honestly, I never wanted to see Emma's face again and could have even looked for another job. But if I wasn't there when she arrived, she would surely say, "I knew you wouldn't last," and laugh about it. Just the thought was unbearable. So, I decided to grow so much that she'd be shocked when she joined. I was determined to prove her wrong. That's what kept me going for 5 years. But reality didn't go as planned, and Emma joined the project I was leading right after she was hired. Despite not wanting to deal with her, I was more motivated than ever, seeing it as an opportunity to prove her wrong. However, Emma was still the same, if not worse, than in high school. "Alex as a chief, that's worrying. Wouldn't it be better if I did it?" she'd interrupt during meetings. Moreover, she would make off-target suggestions like, "Is this discussion even meaningful? Why not just do it this way?" As if she was absolutely right. And to top it off, She never apologized for being late. She would also leave early without notice. Her self-centered behavior quickly became the talk of the company, but she didn't care, saying, "Dad would forgive me. I'm a special case as the president's daughter." No one dared to confront her due to her father's influence. I realized that no matter how well I performed, she wouldn't care, and proving her wrong seemed impossible. So, I focused on making this project, my first as a chief, a success. That became my main goal. But then, "Have a good evening," Emma said, getting up to leave right at the end of the workday. It was normal to leave at that time, and we weren't a company that demanded constant overtime. But still. "Hey, Emma, what about the documents due today?" Feeling genuinely worried, I had to ask. There had been documents due for weeks, and Emma hadn't submitted them yet. "Oops, I forgot. Alex, can you handle it?" Hearing that response, I couldn't just stay silent. "No, that's impossible. I've got a lot to do myself, and everyone else is busy with their work too. You can't just pass your tasks to others. You need to take responsibility and finish your own work." If this were a private matter, I'd prefer to ignore it, but this is work, and it can't be taken lightly. This could cause inconvenience to others and our clients. Then, unusually raising her voice, Emma said, "It's ridiculous that I can't leave at the end of my shift. I was busy, so it can't be helped. Isn't it your fault for assigning more work than can be done by the deadline?" Indeed, I think there is some truth to her point about work allocation. But honestly, I knew from the beginning that Emma wouldn't work seriously. I had only asked her to do basic documentation, and she spent most of her time on her phone or browsing makeup online, hardly working at all. Hearing her say she was busy when she planned to leave on time just didn't sit right with me. "Busy? What were you doing today then? Tell me what work you did. Can you say that in front of other employees who've been working hard all day?" Even the articulate Emma couldn't find words to retort and just glared at me. Eventually, she said, "It's impossible. I have a mixer to go to, and overtime is out of the question. If you keep being annoying, I'll tell my dad. You'll be fired in no time," and stormed towards the exit. Many of my colleagues, fearing her words, didn't dare to confront the new employee, Emma. But that's just wrong. Everyone else is working hard. It's unfair that I, who work sincerely, might get fired, while she, who plays around, acts so superior. It would be absurd if that actually happened. Realizing that arguing was futile, I pondered my next steps. I had planned to work until the last train just on my tasks, but maybe I could finish everything if I pulled an all-nighter. I tried to avoid overtime for others, only to overload myself. That's why I couldn't handle these troubles effectively. Thinking about it, maybe Emma was right about my misallocation. I might not have a leg to stand on if I were fired. Ouch! I heard Emma's voice from the direction of the door and looked over. There stood a person I didn't recognize. A middle-aged man in a clean, sharp suit, someone I had never seen before. As I wondered who he might be, I heard Emma say, "Dad, why?" And then I realized. This man was Mr. Johnson, the president, whom I was meeting for the first time. If he had witnessed this whole scene, things might be resolved quickly. Was I about to be fired immediately? Frozen with fear of what President Johnson might say, I noticed Emma acting strangely. Well, I expected her to claim I was bullying her and push for my termination, but she seemed flustered. Then President Johnson simply said, "No need to say anything." Emma fell silent, unable to argue back. It was the first time I saw her so compliant, which was, of course, expected. "You are fired, effective today." With President Johnson's next words, the office fell into a hushed silence. So it's come to this. President Johnson is human too. Seeing his daughter upset would naturally affect him. But was I wrong? What was the right thing to do as a chief? It's too late for regrets, but I couldn't help feeling frustrated. Yes, I apologize, I answered softly. I had a lot of counter-arguments in mind, but I doubted that talking back to President Johnson would change the outcome. After all, he's Emma's father. Just as I had resigned myself to the inevitable, President Johnson said, "No, there's nothing for you to apologize for." Shocked, I looked up. What? There stood President Johnson with a look of exasperation, and Emma, pale-faced. "It's you, Emma, who's being fired. Did I ever say you could do whatever you want just because you're the president's daughter? You seem to be under some misconception. I let you join this company not because I thought you could do as you pleased, but as a learning experience, given your naivety and selfishness. I thought it would be too troublesome to have you hired elsewhere, but it seems my message didn't get through." From his demeanor, President Johnson was quite different from what I had imagined. I had always thought he doted on Emma and spoiled her. He seemed strict, and Emma looked tense in his presence. "Sorry, Dad, I'll be serious from now on. As the president, I cannot implore someone who behaves selfishly without considering the inconvenience to other employees." Despite Emma's tearful apologies, there was no sign of forgiveness. Finally, President Johnson ignored her and apologized to us, the employees. "I'm truly sorry for the trouble my daughter has caused. I'd like to finish the work she left undone." His offer surprised us, and though we hesitated, he insisted, so we accepted his help. Emma continued to sob, begging her father to reconsider the firing, but he never agreed. It was a pitiable sight, far from her usual haughty demeanor. But given her past behavior, no one sympathized with her. Thanks to President Johnson, we completed the documentation on time, and the project was a success. It was rare for him, mostly stationed overseas, to be at the headquarters. The supervisors were astonished to see him working on a project, doing tasks usually assigned to new recruits. I was nervous throughout, but working with him showed me he was a strict yet considerate leader. It was hard to understand how someone like him could have a daughter like Emma. In the end, Emma was fired from the company. I heard through the grapevine, and I'm not sure if it's true, but apparently, President Johnson had told her that if she couldn't make it in this company, the next step would be training at a rural subsidiary factory. I don't know what she's up to these days, but I do hope this experience has changed her, even just a little, to be more like an average person.